Bahamas, let your voices blaze.
Bahamas, your Save the Bays team is live on air once a week to give you your environmental update on your country, our beautiful Bahama land. Join us on Voice of the Bays radio show each Thursday on Love 97 from 5 to 6 p.m. to hear the latest news on our 700 islands in the sun. Call in and let your voice be heard during the show. Calling from Nassau, dial 326-8255. Calling in from Freeport, use 351-6175. You can also listen to the show streaming online.
Let's save the bays.
The content of Voice of the Bays radio show is the property of Save the Bays, Coalition to Protect Clifton Bay, and is intended for general information purposes only. The views expressed by the show hosts or their guests are their own, and not that of Love 97. To learn more about Save the Bays, please visit their website at www.savethebays.bs or find them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. Our thanks, Bahamas, for your support.
Rise up Bahamas, let your voices blaze. Stand up Bahamas, come on, let's save the bays. Clifton Bay, save it. Breakers Bay, save it. Liberty Bay, save it. Let's save the bays. Rise up Bahamas, let your voices blaze. Stand up Bahamas, come on, let's save the bays. God gave us this land, and this land we must save. Stand up Bahamas, come on, let's save the bays. Our coalition's forming to stand up for what's right, to protect our Bahamas, and we're prepared to fight. Protecting our waters, protecting our land. Stop destroying our beaches and keeping all our sand. God gave us this land, and this land we must protect. So when I say
Bahama land,
Jack,
and
we must
welcome to
protect
the
the
Voice
fauna,
of the
we
Bays.
must protect the
The
flora.
environment speaks. And as we know, the environment is made of a whole number of aspects. The ocean, the sea coast, the mangroves, the coral reefs, the beautiful beaches, the sands. But also, the environment is made up of the people. And the people have a fundamental right to breathe fresh air. That is an indisputable right that we all have. The moment that we exit, even as we are in the womb of our mothers, we are breathing through the possibility that the mother is able to breathe fresh air. The moment that we exit the womb of the mother, we are breathing. And that is the fundamental aspect coming straight from the divine, from our Creator, which gives us the life that we have and the life that we support. And therefore, it is indisputable that the fundamental right of human beings is to be able to breathe fresh air. So this evening we are going to delve into this whole aspect of what I call the dump fiasco. Let me say that again, tongue-tied. Dump fiasco, DDF. And we are going to give some examples because, you know, we are, to say the least, we're distraught at the fact that this situation has existed for so long in a beautiful city like Nassau in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And there is really no excuse for it. And we're not here to blame the present administration, the government, the PLP, because it has existed under every administration for the last almost 50 years. And right around us, we have examples, whether they're coming out of Florida, whether they're coming out of Freeport, and a brand new one that has come to our attention. We will be addressing it this afternoon, and hopefully we can garner some good information from these situations. So we're going to be talking about those, and then in a moment, and I don't know whether or not he's had the emergency because of the foul air, the poison air that has been breathed in by many Nassauians over the last almost a week or so. Dr. Arlington Lightbourne, the Wellness Center. He's the founder of Wellness Center on Collins Avenue, and he's a respiratory expert. And he's been on the show before, and I think just last year, and he gave us some marvelous hints as to how we're going to deal with the situation. And he had an emergency, but he will be here shortly. But my always marvelous stand-in, Diane Phillips, is right here opposite me. and she's always coming in with a wealth and ton of information, and of course it's always relevant to the topic. And Diane, welcome to you to Voice of the Bays, The Environment Speaks, this afternoon.
Joe, it's great to be across the table from you one more time, to hear the passion in your voice and the compassion that you feel for your fellow Bahamian. I wish one of these days we could be coming in here celebrating something, saying, we have found a solution, we have done something right, or a reef has been saved, or a group is committed to something. We talk about so many ills, and we have to always be positive that there is a better way. So today, as you said, the DDF, I love that, damn dump. Ooh, I swore on air.
Yeah, you could say damn on the air.
Okay, anyway.
That's not a curse word, you know.
All right. Okay.
I mean, in my estimation, it's not.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, sticking to the subject, the dump, because that's what's on everybody's mind. It's what's on everybody's mind. It's what's in everybody's hair. It's what's in everybody's nostrils.
Oh, yeah.
No matter where you are. I was all over this island today. I was at the airport. I was at Sandyport. I was up east. I was back out to Sandyport. Everywhere I went, the wind must have shifted wherever I was driving. I must have just carried the wind with me, or maybe it just carried the smell in my car. I don't know. But all day long, I was breathing in the noxious fumes, and I don't know how those poor people in Jubilee Gardens are surviving. You did see that they did actually release the number of persons who had been treated at the nearby Flamingo Gardens clinic.
It was something like 1,200?
No. That was the 1,200 who received aid. But
the ones that were
treated, and then several were admitted to PMH on an emergency basis. And it will be interesting to see if Dr. Lightbourne's emergency this afternoon, which was just a little less than an hour ago when he called to say, I'm going to be late. There's another. He had 4 emergency house calls today. And it'd be interesting to see if they're related to the fire, or to the aftermath. That fire was on Sunday, March 5th. They said on last week's show, we were actually flying in from Exuma in a seaplane and flew through that smoke. It was so thick, billowing, black, that the larger planes that were above us could not see the Nassau airport. Remember I said they were urging air traffic control to open another runway because they were being forced to land crosswinds because of the direction of the wind, because runway 90 was closed, and all they could see was black smoke. Flying in from above, it looked like an island on fire.
Similarly, when we flew in yesterday morning from Freeport, actually, even before we landed, we were breathing in foul air, and my throat, my eyes, and my nostrils were simply congested. And even today, and even as we sat in the precincts of a closed-up courthouse, we were breathing in foul air that was emanating from the dump. And it penetrated. In fact, when we were landing, I was wondering what was going on, why the cruise ships that were in port would look so hazy. Then all of a sudden I realized that the winds had shifted, was coming now from the southwest, which means that whole smoke situation had shifted and was going more towards the central part of New Providence, and then on to the eastern part.
Right.
And you mentioned that way out east where you live, you were being affected.
Right, and I was out on Prince Charles Drive today to pick up my voter registration card, to collect it. And when I left the post office at Elizabeth Estates, right there, because I went there by mistake. I was supposed to have gone to St. Anne's. I didn't realize. But at Elizabeth Estates post office, you could hardly walk to the car and breathe normally. And here comes Dr. Arlington Lightbourne, who, well, we welcome you very much. We hope that last emergency was not related to the dump, but we will be interested to hear what you have to say, how many people you've treated this week. And I remember, Dr. Lightbourne, something you said last year that always stuck with me. And do you know that fire at the dump last year, the really bad one, was the same week as this year? Yeah. 2016 and 2017. But Dr. Lightbourne said at that time, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the average person breathes in 24,000 to 28,000 breaths a day. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. and children, the smaller kids breathe in even more. So I mean, it is unfortunately a tradition that we seem to be having, where around this time every year we have a really bad fire there. Not that it's not fires throughout the year, but for some reason around this time it seems to be really, really bad. And I think enough is enough, and I think people, I hope, are starting to wake up to the idea that this problem is not going to go away unless they force our leaders to pay attention to it and deal with it once and for all.
How do you not pay attention after what's happened in the last 10 days? How do you not pay attention? This has been the hottest time with all of the politics, with everything else that's going on. Nothing has aroused the ire or the interest of the Bahamian public like the dump fire.
Yeah. But the unfortunate thing is, for some reason, I mean, and it happens, we all have our busy lives, and when the smoke stops and the scent goes away, people seem to forget.
Yeah, that was yesterday's event, yesterday's news.
Yeah, they seem to just not pay as much attention to it. And so we've got to understand, and part of what my role in this whole process has been is just to consistently remind people that the effects of that fire remains with us for months after each fire. The effects of the fumes are not just short-term. We all talk about the short-term implications of the dump. We all talk about the issues with aggravation of respiratory conditions and how it aggravates the elderly and children, and asthma attacks and the likes. But the long-term implications, such as the potential for pulmonary fibrosis and chronic obstructive diseases.
Healthy person, not necessarily a senior citizen or
and that can happen to anybody. I said adult onset asthma, someone who's never had asthma in their life, suddenly developing asthma. And obviously the very feared big C word, which is cancer, which has definitely been linked to many of the potential products of the fire.
Have you treated anybody this week as a result?
I have treated some people. It's not been a whole lot, but I know many of my colleagues have treated quite a bit of people, and I know there are quite a bit that are being treated by the public system. I mean, sometimes it's hard to tell because, for example, I just saw a lady who's been having severe headaches, and it's not something she usually has for the past week. Who's to say that those severe headaches are not linked to the effects of breathing in toxic fumes for the past week?
Is anybody keeping an inventory of this? For instance, the Medical Association of the Bahamas, are you all connecting in any way to say, here are the cases I'm treating? Can you link the information and the data?
Well, not to my knowledge. I know we have a very proactive president, and this is something that I can talk to him about. I did mention yesterday that maybe there is need for a some form of registry that allows us to sort of track the health outcomes of the people who are most affected by this dump. Because I think, as I said before, it's really, really sad when someone at 30, God forbid, is diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis or even cancer, and which is most likely linked to their exposure when they're a child at 10 or 12, and can't make that connection. I think a registry is necessary. I think we owe it to the people to follow their health and how this could affect them in the long term, and ensure that we are proactive and we do all we can as a country to mitigate the potential outcomes that are possible.
Yeah, Doctor, in my introduction to our show, Voice of the Bays Environment Speaks, I think we were not on a live microphone, and I got a call in that said that I was not being heard. But in the introduction, before I introduce Diane Phillips, I mentioned the fact that we are here to look for solutions. We're not here to complain, because they've already been condemned. All administrations over 40 years ago, they are condemned with respect to the negligence in this regard. And so we're here to really find out what solutions there are, and to give recommendations to government, to the authorities that have the privilege and the right and the obligation to correct this situation. And we know that there are situations of similar landfills in Florida, many of them. Every time I go there, I have to drive by 2 or 3 landfills, and you never see any smoke, you never see anything coming out of them. They're covered with green and all the rest. And then we have a situation right here in Grand Bahama, which I have recommended. I think the last time you and I spoke with Diane last year, after that fiasco that took place, after which there was that massive march, I mentioned the fact that Freeport has a state-of-the-art landfill, the best. Well, we could probably go on to hear that there's probably one better than that, but one of the best in the Caribbean. And why is it that hasn't been used as an example to create the state-of-the-art? And I'm eager to get to what Diane has discovered just recently with respect to our neighbors to the south, what they have done with such a situation. But I say it is a terrible tragedy. And I've been dealing with this situation for a very long time, beginning particularly in Grand Bahama, when schools and citizens in that area, under the stacks of the former Freeport Power Company, Borco, the petrochemical and pharmaceutical chemicals, breathing in the multitude of toxins, and we always had it said from them that one particular thing that comes out of the one particular operation may not be as dangerous as one would think. But when you have the combination of all of these elements combined, this is what penetrated the atmosphere around the industrial area in Grand Bahama, resulting from the fact that the schools had to be removed from there. I initiated the whole movement with Grand Bahama Catholic High School. To date, just following one class alone, 1982 class, and 14 of our students have predeceased me, 14 of them, from one class that counted up to 98. And all of the evidence showed from just, not from any investigation by any medical personnel in the Bahamas, but from their reports from abroad, that 12 of these students have died as a result of pollution, industrial pollution. So that is a signature of what may happen to our beloved people. So we first of all, we want to talk about the concrete problem, because all of the nasty things that people have to breathe in, all that combination, etc. It is a horrific situation. But I want to get to Di, because Di discovered something. She's always investigating all of these situations, see how we can alleviate, mitigate against all of these things that create havoc in our lives. Di, tell us a little bit about what you found right in our neighbors.
Well, it was actually a recommendation from a client who said, I lived in Turks and Caicos for a very long time. We had a similar problem, and in fact, he forwarded an article to me, and it sounds like you're reading about the Nassau dump. And let's make sure that we call it a dump, because it's not a landfill. So I'm just going to read you a couple of quick words, and let's remember to give out our telephone numbers too for anyone who wants to call in.
Sure.
So, but it said, if you'd like, this is written before the cure in Turks and Caicos. If you'd like to see an image of post-apocalypse Provo, take a trip to the dump. Currently sprawling over a 27-acre site of formerly beautiful bush in the northwest corner of the island. The flags that mark your approach are fragments of plastic bags flapping in the breeze. You'll be greeted by swarms of hungry flies as you dodge rusted appliances, chunks of lumber and other piles of trash that have tumbled off the backs of trucks and burst open on the way to the site. Some days visiting tourists view ugly black plumes of smoke as they make a landing approach to the airport. That's from the burning of rubber tires. Anyway, the story goes on, the article goes on. Talk about everything that sounds exactly like the Nassau dump. From the burning of tires, the methane, the frequent fires that are very, very hard to control. And in comes a group. The government had undertaken a study, and they had decided that something had to be done both in Provo and in Grand Turk, because they had separate separate dumps. So there is a person who owns a home on an area called Parrot Key, an island called Parrot Key. And remember, Turks and Caicos is really geographically a part of the Bahamas.
Part of
we're
Bahamas,
we're
yeah.
not talking about a culture that's remarkably different, or, we're not talking about something in the United Arab Emirates or something. We're talking about our
Family.
neighbors. They're really, family, as Dr. Lightbourne said. So he said, we have tackled something like this where I'm from in Washington State, and I will do it here. And they started from scratch. They did not have to move that dump. I don't know what they did with everything. It's a very lengthy process, but they laid down the proper curtains, as they're called, or what blocks everything and suffocates it. And 3 layers of that. They composted a lot of stuff. They created a proper landfill, and within 4 months, they had actually started the transformation.
Wow.
And 4 years later, it's a tourist attraction.
Oh, wow.
Okay, Doc and Diane, we're going to take a short break and be right back. You're listening to the Voice of the Bays, The Environment Speaks, and I have as my guest this evening Dr. Arlington Lightbourne, who's expert in respiratory matters, and of course my co-host Diane Phillips. The numbers to call, if you have a concern or suggestion, remember this is your country, and you have the right to speak your mind, to give positive suggestions as to how we're going to solve this disaster, in a national disaster, catastrophic disaster in our midst, because daily, after even more than a week, we're all suffering. So call us at 322-5477 or 326-8255. We're going to take a short break and be right back.
It's happy hour at Pompey Square.
On Friday, March 3rd, the Ministry of Tourism is taking over the square for an evening of new Bahamian music, food, fun, and excitement. Come join us from 4 to 7 p.m.
We are revealing the top 20 contestants of the Bahamian Ting Song Competition, and we want you there.
Be among the first to hear their songs. Mix and mingle with the artists, enjoy Bahamian food, and great new music.
The Bahamian Ting Happy Hour in Pompey Square, Friday, March 3rd.
See you there.
For more information, call 302-2000.
The agricultural industry in the Bahamas was definitely dying.
Once we control our food production, we become a much stronger nation. BAMSI is really about helping Bahamians. That's the whole vision.
The vision of BAMSI came from the Prime Minister.
A few years ago, we had nothing.
Now, we're going to see more and more local produce as we push aside foreign imports.
BAMSI will reach every community in the Bahamas.
Jobs would be available in those islands rather than coming to Nassau to look for a job.
I don't have enough students for the amount of job offers that they get.
They don't need to find a job, they can create a job. They can be their own boss.
We're here to create entrepreneurs and innovators.
Agriculture is so much more than farming. We have chemists and soil scientists and geneticists.
It's time to start buying Bahamian. To get involved and learn more, visit BAMSIBahamas.com.
This just makes me feel really proud to be Bahamian.
Did you know Fidelity Bank is offering the lowest interest rates ever on loans and debt consolidations? Find out more as Fidelity hosts a welcome home party on Saturday, March 11th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at our Cable Beach location. Find out how you can get lower interest rates, lower fees, and lower monthly payments. There will be lots of prizes and surprises, including an all-expense-paid Easter vacation, an iPhone 6, or $250 cash grab in Fidelity's money machine. Plus, free financial coaching with expert advice on how to keep more cash in your wallet. A $500 value absolutely free. Bounce back with Fidelity on Saturday, March 11th and take advantage of low, low rates.
Rise up Bahamas and let your voices blaze.
Bahamas, your Save the Bays team is live on air once a week to give you your environmental update on your country, our beautiful Bahama land. Join us on Voice of the Bays radio show each Thursday on Love 97 from 5 to 6 p.m. to hear the latest news on our 700 islands in the sun. Call in and let your voice be heard during the show. Calling from Nassau, dial 3.
Welcome back, Bahama Land, to Voice of the Bays, The Environment Speaks. Again, our renowned guest this afternoon, Dr. Arlington Lightbourne, from the Wellness Center on Collins Avenue, and a respiratory disease expert, and our beloved Diane Phillips. And we're here to not simply belabor all of the tragedies associated with what has been happening now for over a week in this beautiful little island, this gem within the archipelagic nation, which should be pristine, where we should breathe fresh air every second of the day. And many of us, those who live here, those who visit here, we have been inconvenienced terribly, unnecessarily so. We have people who've come in from abroad with all sorts of plans of actually how to partner with the local people, I understand, to have the state-of-the-art landfill. But the landfill has not been achieved. It is simply a dump, a burning heap of garbage, which includes every type of toxic materials one can imagine. And these are all the things that have been burning and emanating throughout the air and the oxygen that we should breathe in, totally pure and refreshing. And we have, I think Diane wants to say something before we go to Dr. and to delineate for us so that people know how to recognize symptoms that may have been result of the air they've been breathing. Diane?
I just want to make a note that because we're an island nation, we generate a lot more garbage and trash than people who live in a metropolitan area do. Everything is imported. It comes in large cartons. It's unpacked. So we're for our small population, we generate an incredible amount of garbage, and visitors actually generate more in an island nation dependent upon tourism than residents do. If we use the model again of Turks and Caicos, they estimated that for every resident generates 1 ton of garbage annually. Now, a ton is 2,000 pounds. Wow. Every visitor generates 1.5 tons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is in large part because of our imports, our dependence upon prepackaged things that come in from elsewhere. And again, if we did a lot more farming, we could change that dynamic. But right now, that's the dynamic we're dealing with. So Dr. Lightbourne, I think it'd be really helpful if you shared what kinds of symptoms people should watch for, so they know when it's time to go to a clinic, or whether it's ever necessary to go to an emergency room, call their own physician, call you at the wellness clinic. We're not trying to give you any more business. We know how great you are. We also know how busy you are, and you're one of the few doctors who does house calls. So
yeah. So I mean, it is this is a public health crisis. I've said it before, and there's no other way to put it, because the impact of this dump burning over the years that it's been burning will remain with us for many years, even after we fixed it. And that is a reality. And I said to members of government, or members of the politicians on both sides, and probably in all three parties, that this is an opportunity. I mean, if you want bragging rights as a party, fix this problem. Fix this problem, and you got bragging rights for years, because this is a major issue for us.
And if you don't fix it, what do you have?
Well, then we need the whole anyone feed to the fire. But symptoms, indoor air quality is one of the most important health issues affecting the world. I mean, indoor air quality and pollution inside of a home or in internal environment is usually 10 up to 100 times more pollutant or more concentrated than outside.
Up to 100 times.
Up to 100
times.
So
the person who smokes a cigarette inside a house. Yes. I remember the days when people smoked in elevators and on airplanes.
Yes. So if you think outside is bad, when you have a home that has these fumes in it that's being recycled and not going anywhere, particularly with the with the HVAC systems and the closed ventilation systems we have in our homes and our offices, it creates a nightmare. And the symptoms can range from simple things like headaches, dizziness, sore throat, even things like fatigue. brain fog. It's not always the things that you would expect, like a cough or throat irritation or runny nose. Those things, yes, but the results of inhaling these fumes, particularly over a matter of days, can cause all kinds of symptoms, even affecting things you would never have guessed, like a woman's hormonal cycle, interfering with her menstrual cycle, causing issues with mood, because these chemicals do a number of things, including disrupt the way our body functions. Doesn't just cause an initial noxious effect, but can disrupt the way our organs function. And so, you can have somebody, like as I said, I just saw someone with headaches for a week. She's never had headaches before, and she said these are some of the worst headaches she's ever had. I have to think in my mind, could this be related to the fact that she's been inhaling fumes, and she doesn't live that near to the dump, but it's near enough. Could this be the result of her inhaling fumes for the past week?
Does she work in a place that would have a closed system? And
but in this case, she's only at home. This is an older woman who is confined to bed, with a ventilated home. With a home that allows air in and out. But it's not that far from.
About how far from the dump?
It's in the Pinewood area, so it's
well,
not that far.
Doc, it's really interesting that you mentioned this, because when we landed at the international airport yesterday morning, and when I noticed all of this stuff still hanging around, and porters at the Odyssey airport, they were still wearing masks. And when I got off that plane, immediately my throat, my eyes, and nostrils. Yes. And then by the time we went inside the Supreme Court, and even within there, my eyes and nose and throat kept that same irritation. And even now, as I step outside, my eyes are burning. And the headache, I never have headaches. I'm always energetic. Yeah. But over the last 2 days here in Nassau, it's almost like my energy has been depleted. Yeah. And listen, when you live in a place where there is pure air that you breathe, you drink good water, you go into the ocean, you get up in the mornings and you breathe that fresh air coming from the ocean, and you see the sunrise, etc., you got a healthy living. But here in Nassau for the last 2 days, I have been literally miserable. Even in the precincts of the closed-up Supreme Court, I could not breathe fresh, clean air. So what you're saying is very correct, and this is why, and I'm not complaining about myself, because I'm going to get the hell out of here probably tomorrow, and I'm going to be breathing in much better air in Grand Bahama. But I'm concerned about my fellow citizens who in Nassau, particularly young people, babies, etc. So why is it that these particular symptoms can hang on within the body? What is the whole mechanism when you breathe in these chemicals that is taking place within the body?
Well, so as I said, you're breathing in. It's not like it's a one-off. It's not like you're going into an environment where the fumes are and then you're able to get out of it. You're constantly inhaling or rebreathing the same chemicals, because even when it's even when you've washed down the walls, it's in the curtains, it's in the mattresses, it's in the soil, it's in our water, it gets into your hair, you're constantly inhaling the same toxic, noxious chemicals, and even the short to medium term implications of that is the symptoms I mentioned. So as I said, headaches, dizziness, sore throat. You can get chest pain. You can have nausea. You can obviously develop a cough. You can feel fatigue, brain fog. But again, all of those other hormonal symptoms I mentioned, because many of the chemicals are what we call endocrine disruptors, and endocrine disruptors. You can have endocrine disruption in an acute environment or long-term exposure, and something that's not very well talked about, but it is a reality. So the result of inhaling the smoke from that dump, especially because up to now we have a pretty good idea about what's burning. But we're not absolutely certain what we're inhaling on a daily basis and what's going to be the short, the medium and long-term implications.
Okay, let me give the numbers again for anyone who might want to call in to give any suggestions that they may have. You may reach us at 322-5477 or 326-8255. Diane?
326-8255. What Dr. Lightbourne said was very interesting, particularly, I think, about the fatigue, because I've noticed a kind of slowing down
Malaise.
in the last,
Yes.
malaise, perfect
Malaise,
word,
yeah,
perfect
yeah.
word, Joe. This kind of dreariness, and you don't know whether it's because the skies have been gray just from the weather, not because of the fire, but the weather. So a kind of a malaise that has hung over Nassau for the last couple of days, and having been fortunate enough to have spent the weekend prior, the March 4th weekend in Exuma, know exactly what you mean about that fresh air, the ocean. Even though it was cold, it was incredible. Because I didn't stay in very long because I'm chicken and Bahamian, but after 35 years, that ocean gets cold in February and March. Nevertheless, I think that we have probably all been guilty of underestimating the comprehensive results of this fire. And I noticed that Fred Smith today called for people to take legal action, saying you have a right to fresh air.
What could be more fundamental than that?
Right.
Yeah, well, that is absolutely fundamental. Like, for example, I'm part of Waterkeeper Alliance, and you're right for fresh air,
clean
water, diveable water, fishable water, swimmable water. All of these things are our fundamental rights, and we're talking about the warming of the planet and climate change and sea level rise and all the rest. One of the things, because Di touched on it, the combination of all of these things that are burning. I remember when I counsel individuals who take drugs, for example, and we're talking about marijuana, I say if you pick a leaf off a marijuana plant, you analyze it, it has about 4 different chemicals in it. When you light that up, it jumps to 400 chemicals. So that impact on the human body, which is not made to assimilate so many chemicals, brings about devastation within the whole ecosystem of the body. So give us some idea of the combination of all of these chemicals that are burning and emanating into our atmosphere.
So, when you look at what's burning, so we've got rubber tires burning, there's just benzene and all kinds of other carbonaceous known carcinogens. You've got plastic burning, which have endocrine disruptors and other cancerous byproducts, dioxins and other things. You've got other kinds of metallic objects, mercury and arsenic. You've got all kinds of things that are byproducts of the various things. Because we have no discretion as to what we throw at that dump. You got medical equipment burning. You've got all of this is what we're inhaling, and that's why I talk about short, medium, and long-term implications, and that's why I caution Bahamians that you've got to understand that even when the smoke clears, the danger still remains, and that's not to create panic, but it is for all of us to rise up and make sure that we push our leaders to solve this problem, because this is something that has to be led. This is not something citizens can pick up tomorrow and solve. This is something that our leaders have to take the lead.
That's a very interesting point, because you can say that it's not a prime minister's fault that there is a high crime rate in the country. You can say that's community, or that it's family breakdown, or it's a change in values, or an increasing amount of hopelessness, or whatever it is. You can blame it on the economy if you want. But you can't blame the lack of a proper landfill and clean air on anything but a government.
Well,
Not
yeah,
just this
it's
government,
all
but
leadership.
Well, that's
all
it. That's why I said I condemn every administration up until now that they have neglected this, which is absolutely necessary in order to create the atmosphere for us to live a beautiful life in this country. what would be your suggestions, Doc, right now, looking at it as a physician, as a person who deals with the whole health and well-being of a human being? How would you suggest to our government what they need to do? You're talking about, short-term, mid-term, long-term, but what about the dump itself immediately? How would you envision anything being done with that? I know we're always jumping out for experts from abroad. We brought so many experts in here. The IDB gave us all sorts of tons of money to create a landfill, and I haven't seen anything done that has created one. So we could have another fire, because we're not yet into the rainy season. Thank God, we'll have some rain early spring, but we're still in a relatively dry season. So we could still have fires in that dump. So what needs to be done immediately so we do not have another catastrophic fiasco on our hands?
Well, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on landfills and management of dumps. I know that a group called Rabble, which you may have heard of, I think, Heather Carey and Laura Payne. Yeah. Laura was on a show that I was also on yesterday evening and made some brilliant suggestions, I think, for ways we can in a very systematic way resolve the issues at the dump. Some of which I'm sure would probably have been done in Turks and Caicos and are being done in Grand Bahama now. My area of particular expertise, I guess you could say, is in healthcare, and it's obviously where I place my greatest concerns. And I say to patients every day that I treat all my patients the way I would treat my own family members.
We need to take a break, and we'll be back in just a few.
Okay, I want to ask you about
Love97fm.com. The radio station the world listens to.
Looking for furniture with style and elegance without forfeiting comfort? Well, you need to look at Donald's Furniture. Donald's Furniture and Appliance Center, home of the Credit Connection, located 6 Terrace, Centerville, will provide just what you're looking for. Furniture with comfort, style, elegance, and stunning good looks. And the lowest prices on the island. Easy credit terms available. Stop in or call us at 322-1731 or 322-3875. Donald's Furniture and Appliance Center. Comfort, elegance, and style.
The summer's hot. Don't sweat it. Cool down after a hard day's work in your own pool from Goodnight Pools. They have the best quality and service on the island. Everything works perfectly. Goodnight Pools puts quality and excellence in every swimming pool. It's like bathing in heaven. You should call Goodnight Pools of Nassau at 397-1050. Located on Montrose Avenue. Goodnight Pools will let you cool in your dream pool.
The agricultural industry in the Bahamas was definitely dying.
Once we control our food production, we become a much stronger nation. BAMSI is really about helping Bahamians. That's the whole vision.
The vision of BAMSI came from the Prime Minister.
A few years ago, we had nothing.
Now, we're going to see more and more local produce as we push aside foreign imports.
BAMSI will reach every community in the Bahamas.
Jobs will be available in those islands rather than coming to Nassau to look for a job.
I don't have enough students for the amount of job offers that they get.
They don't need to find a job. They can create a job. They can be their own boss.
We're here to create entrepreneurs and innovators.
Agriculture is so much more than farming. We have chemists and soil scientists and geneticists.
It's time to start buying Bahamian. To get involved and learn more, visit BAMSIBahamas.com.
This just makes me feel really proud to be Bahamian.
For rapid relief of acid indigestion, gas, and heartburn, take Dica. Dica is sucrose-free and low in sodium. Its ingredients: aluminum hydroxide equivalent to dry gel, magnesium hydroxide, and simethicone. This combination is an antacid that soothes and protects. Dica is used for the treatment and relief of symptoms of peptic ulcer, gastritis, hyperactivity, and the management of gastrointestinal disorders associated with excessive gas. Dyke is available in pharmacies all over the Bahamas.
Rise up, Bahamas, and let your voices blaze.
Bahamas, your Save the Bays team is live on air once a week to give you your environmental update on your country, our beautiful Bahama land. Join us on Voice of the Bays radio show each Thursday on Love 97 from 5 to 6 p.m. to hear the latest news on our 700 islands in the sun. Call in and let your voice be heard during the show. Calling from Nassau.
Welcome back, Bahama Land, to the last section, well, one before the last maybe, of our very informative show this afternoon, The Voice of the Bays, The Environment Speaks, and we have two very excellent people in the studios with me this afternoon, Diane Phillips and Dr. Arlington Lightbourne, who's an expert, medical expert, and someone who knows about all of these particular matters. And Doc, there are two areas I want us to cover. One is masks being worn, or should be worn, the quality that should be, because I remember from last year you mentioned that not all masks are appropriate in this situation, and also the tragedy of seeing firemen with hoses. You know, I knocked my forehead. Can you hear it? I knocked my forehead when I saw pictures of those men. I said, oh my God, what's going to happen to them in the future? So with them, the firemen, the mask, and then children, how are we going to monitor the health, ongoing health of our children around those areas?
Yeah. So like I said, it's a very difficult topic. I mean, it's a difficult question because, you know, those kids who've already been exposed to the fires over the years, I can't tell you, even if there are no other fires, that they're not going to have some issue years to come. The only thing, first of all, we need to ensure that there are no additional fires. As far as the smoke that's emitting from there now, my advice remains the same as it was last year. If you are able to get your child and family out of that community and as far as possible away from it, and do that. I mean, that's obviously not practical for everyone, but if you are able to do that, do it, because that's obviously the best solution at this point. If you aren't, then you do what you can to protect your kids and yourself. The paper masks provide very, very little protection, if any. They're really not meant for fumes. They're meant more for dust and larger particles. There are masks that are a bit better. One of them is called an N95. It's available, I know, at some of the pharmaceutical companies, like, and I know, some of the hardware companies sometimes also have it. I think I even saw some in Kelly's. And they're not terribly expensive, and obviously at this point it's a good investment. And certainly if your child has issues with asthma or any other concern, and they're coming out of the house, then yes, I would have that mask for them.
Yeah, there's a whole new industry there. You could do designer masks. You could do initials. You have to make it cool, because the one kid who wears that mask when nobody else is going to be called a sissy.
Yeah.
What, you can't take it?
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point.
So you got to make the mask cool.
Exactly.
So, and I mean, as far as our first responders, my mouth dropped when I saw the newspaper and saw how our firemen, our first responders, the people that go out on the front line for us, were not adequately protected. I mean, I think that image globally was not a very good image for the Bahamas.
The same thing happened, Dr. Lightbourne, after 9/11, and I went to New York and saw it firsthand when we were allowed to travel. But the people who were the first responders there, who even had reasonable masks, suffered so much later and several years down the road.
And that's with appropriate masks.
And there were so many deaths and there were so many disabilities. Those first responders, almost none of them went on to lead a normal life. It was partially what they saw. It was partially the emotional toll.
But a lot of it was health and physical.
And a situation like what we have there at the dump, even oxygen tanks are necessary, because even with the breathing apparatus, the straining of it, it's going to get into your system one way or another when you're right into the midst of it, trying to put burning flames out while you're standing so near to it. And so I don't know, it aches me terribly that our people, fathers, who have to go back to their homes, to their children, their wives, etc., could be subjected to such a hazard situation. No country should, in a modern time, allow a fireman to go into that situation without oxygen tanks and without all of the gear, as you've seen, as someone posted next to what our men were wearing and what they wear in Florida when they go to even just put out a house fire.
Yeah.
How they are decked down and everything, suits and everything, because these chemicals, Doc, correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't only penetrate into the nostrils or the mouth or the eyes, they actually can penetrate the skin.
Definitely.
They penetrate the skin.
Most definitely. They enter through the mucous membranes, but even the skin, and they remain on the skin for even after multiple showers.
Let me give you one example. There was a friend of mine in Freeport who worked at one of the pharmaceutical companies. I mentioned it in Syntex, and he worked in the lab, and those chemicals that he handled, he never allowed them to touch his body. But as a result of being around them, just the fumes that come out of there, it began to eat all the flesh of his arms, and he had to spend months, and in fact a whole year, in treatment in the United States just to get his skin back in order. So, this is something you don't fool around with. Like I always said to the kids, a marijuana leaf, 4 chemicals. When you pick it up the tree, burn it, 400. The body cannot assimilate that. It cannot be metabolized by the body, and therefore it rests in the organs of the body, and it begins to do havoc to the body, simply because there's no way the body can get it outside and to be excreted in urine or some other way.
Now, what about women who are pregnant? Should there be special precautions for them? Should they be forced to evacuate the area? Should they be relocated? Do you have any particular advice?
I mean, my wife was recently pregnant. I can tell you, if we were living in that community, I would have definitely moved. Forcefully moving, I'm not sure. I can't say right now what the evidence is as relates to smoke inhalation and the unborn fetus. I'm sure that the same impact, because much of that stuff will cross the fetal placenta barrier. The maternal fetus barrier, and so it is possible that it will affect the fetus. So I would certainly urge as a physician and advise strongly any pregnant women, yes, definitely move away from the area. And the same applies to young children. The same applies to the elderly. The same applies to people who are sick. Otherwise, I would definitely, people who are asthmatic, people with cardiovascular issues, and when you look at that, those groups of populations, that probably consist of maybe half of the community that's there.
So half of the community, but we should really point to the fact that there is a Bahamian consortium that is willing to go in and create a proper landfill. There is this group out of Turks and Caicos and Seattle, Washington,
and right in Freeport,
which is supposed to be a gorgeous landfill.
Yeah. We take. Let me just say, you could have a picnic there. You could be that could be actually an attraction, like you said in Turks and Caicos. The landfill in Freeport could be a tourist attraction as well. We take our environmental students there all the time to show them how a landfill should be operated. Right? Well, how many miles? 25 minutes from Nassau, and we cannot get Lou Carroll in here to advise these people how to do it properly with all the linings, etc. But before we go, I don't want to miss this. People, keep records of your health visits to doctors, because down the road you're going to need them for cases that you might have to bring against the government or whoever has been operating that dump for restitution for you. So make sure that anytime you go to a doctor, you get your papers and make sure you keep them in a good place, because down the road we will have to have a special health fund to take care of the people who have been inconvenienced, polluted with the most nasty things that you could ever imagine, burning and being breathed in by those tender, beautiful lungs of yours.
Yeah, and I intend to engage the president of the Medical Association of Bahamas to just to have a conversation to see how practical it is for that registry we spoke about, to see if we can capture the population that's affected in a way that allows us to track them over 10, 15 years, and actually be able to say with some certainty what actually happened, what was the outcome, did any of those people go on to develop any health issues, and then use that to ensure that these people get the care and the what's the legal word? Compensation that they deserve.
Well, yes, and not just the Medical Association, but I think this should be the obligation of the Ministry of Health to institute such a function immediately to make sure, because that they owe the people this, to make sure that they are monitored closely, and not that they're going to be found to be at fault down the road, but that is only humane, compassionate treatment to people who have been terribly affected by this tragedy. I think we're almost out of time.
Just one.
No, go ahead.
One comment. If we had a coordinated effort, then we would have.
We got 5 minutes.
We would have the weather the night before, saying winds will be from such and such. They will coordinate with the Ministry of Education. The following schools will be closed as long as the winds are coming from that direction. We will take remedial action. We will send those students here. There seems to me that there's an opportunity for great coordination and cooperation, but everybody is acting like it's somebody else's problem and someone's going to miraculously fix the dump and make it a landfill. But we need to coordinate the efforts.
But let's put this little plug in there now. I don't know, my former student Basil Dean, who is the assistant meteorological expert in the Bahamas. Basil, and I hope you're listening too. Basil said in something I read in the paper this morning that the tornado that struck yesterday morning,
that did more damage in Cable Beach than Hurricane Matthew did.
Yes, and there was no prediction. Now, was that because it came so rapidly, or because we don't have the equipment to find out when this is going to happen? And I'm glad you mentioned that. So there should be equipment and notices sent out when you have a dump fire to warn people that, hey, the wind is shifting from the east to the southwest, to the southeast, to the southwest, to the northwest, and watch out where you live, downwind, you're going to be affected. And listen, if that tornado was not detected on radar, my God, it means that we don't have the equipment. We don't have the equipment. And I don't blame the Met people. I don't blame my former student, Basil Dean. He's a great guy, honorable person. But how in God's name we could not detect such a phenomenal, catastrophic event like a tornado?
And we are so fortunate that no one died in that.
Exactly.
Because it happened like that with no warning, and it was catastrophic. But it was catastrophic to property damage.
Yeah.
Had it happened at a different time of day, when Cable Beach was filled with people, particularly the west end of Cable Beach, been filled with beachgoers and spring breakers and so forth, there could have been deaths. Some of these little girls who, college students, could have been just picked up like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz and vanished from the Bahamas.
And look what it did to Bahamas airplane.
Yes.
Yes, it was 20 million.
Huh?
$20 million plane, I think.
$20 million plane.
That is already being repaired. But,
yeah.
Anyway, back to the thought of a registry. The things that we can do on an immediate basis. We can really push for the registry. We can try to get everyone who is suffering any kind of symptoms at all to just keep note of it in a medical diary. It doesn't have to be a fancy piece of paper. You can use the back of a brown grocery bag, but make notes on it. Don't hesitate to see a physician or go to a clinic or something if you feel. Don't think, it's just a headache.
Yeah. Pay attention to your body. Pay attention to symptoms. If you've never had certain symptoms before, it is probably a good idea to make to at least inquire if there is a connection between the two, because there may be. And as I said, the symptoms are not always typical. So it could be simply brain fog. Look, I just feel more confused than normal. That is actually a symptom of poor air quality.
Brain fog. Okay. The other thing, the final note that I would like to leave our listeners with is get involved.
Well,
we can sit here and we can complain, but if we don't pick up the phone and call our MP and demand that they find a solution, and it may not be far, and it may be right here with the local consortium or the people working here with the people in Grand Bahama, but find a solution. Do not deny the fact that people are hurting from this. Do not deny the fact that they will suffer medically. If you have to create we don't know where some of that VAT money went, create a medical fund with some of it. Use the taxpayer dollars for the things that are essential. This is
very important. And as I said, and I think I did on another radio show, some of the VAT money should be used to give comfort to those people who've been displaced. They should be put in the most elaborate, not expensive, but comfortable situations. But I wanted to mention, along that before Thibault throws me off the air, and that is that it is your responsibility, because this is not just Nassau, also the other family islands who are suffering similarly with their dumps. They're burning. And we had a caller who called in at length last time we were on and gave an example of the dump on the island, which is burning, and the people are breathing in foul air as well. So this is throughout the archipelagic nation of the Bahamas. And if Turks and Caicos could have a state-of-the-art,
if they can do it,
if Freeport can do it, why can't Nassau do it? We got so much intelligence. In fact, there was an engineer, and I hope he calls me sometime, 727-0212, 727-0212. Call me, your engineer, when you spoke to me last year and you said you had all these degrees and this is your expertise, but you went to the government, you were turned down. So call me again so I can give your name to them. Blessings to all of you, Bahama Land. Skibo, thanks for letting me go 1 minute in time. But my mic was dead in the beginning, so I deserve to have extra minutes. By the way, we'll be with you at 4 o'clock next week, Wednesday. Mr. Jones want to have these all elaborate things before election. So he's taken away my hour at 5 to 6, but he's given me a good one, 4 to 5. So we'll be on the air next week, 4 o'clock to 5 p.m. God bless you. Try and breathe the fresh air. If you're in the areas where you're breathing foul air, go out on the ocean and breathe in that beautiful, clean air that God has given us as such a gift. God bless you all.
And thank you, Dr. Lightbourne, for being our special guest today, Dr. Arlington Lightbourne of the Wellness Clinic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Beautiful Bahama Land. Join us on Voice of the Bays radio show each Thursday on Love 97 from 5 to 6 p.m. to hear the latest news on our 700 islands in the sun. Call in and let your voice be heard during the show. Calling from Nassau, dial 326-8255. Calling in from Freeport, use 351-6175. You can also listen to the show streaming online.
One world,